When Harvard professor Clay Christensen released the book Disruptive Innovation in 1997, it shook the entire business world. For the first time, someone had articulated how new products can regularly disrupt existing established companies and set up and establish new markets entirely. And tech companies have adopted the principles of disruptive innovation far and wide. This is the story of how Adobe narrowly missed being disrupted in the 2010s. We'll even talk about how it can now use the $20 billion Figma acquisition to set itself up for success for future generations. So in 2010, Adobe was doing great. Despite a small fight with Steve Jobs over its Flash plugin, the company was posting its first billion-dollar quarter, as well as stock price that was up more than 250% from the dot-com crash. But despite all of this, the leadership and the board were smart enough to see the writings on the wall. There were smaller competitors who had released products in the creative software tool space that were going to threaten Adobe's future. Sketch was launched in 2008 as a vector graphics editor and was developed by the Dutch company Bohemian Coding. Sketch quickly became popular amongst UI and UX designers due to its easy subscription pricing, user-friendly interface, and focused on the digital design. While CorelDRAW was a competitor for Adobe Illustrator for a long time, it experienced the resurge in the early 2010s with a focus on improving its features and offering a more competitive pricing structure. Pixlr had launched in 2008 with a browser-based photo editing tool. Pixlr provided users with a convenient and easy-to-use alternative to Adobe Photoshop. It was even acquired by Autodesk soon after. And there were numerous other competitors that were trying to steal market share from Adobe's creative tools. So the natural and gut reaction for the Adobe executives would have been, our tools cater to pros with a pricing in the range of $399 to $999. None of these new competitors and products match up to our standards of performance. Our customers are telling us that they love our products and they would never switch to these shittier and inferior alternatives. These new products are serving the bottom end of the market for a few dollars a month. That's not a space that we want to dominate, and so we shouldn't waste any more time thinking of these new companies or products as competitors. Let's go build some greater and better features into Photoshop and After Effects that will make our customers and pros love us even more. But somebody really had the foresight to see that this was exactly the innovator's dilemma. And if they continued on this path, these newer, inferior competitors and products would slowly improve in their performance and features and start cannibalizing Adobe's existing market and capture all of their customers, including the pros, and eventually disrupt Adobe entirely as a company. So what were they to do? One of Christensen's key teachings is to disrupt yourself before others do. Adobe really took this principle to heart by changing its business model and product suite, even though it meant cannibalizing its existing revenue streams and high-end customers. There were three things that they did. First, in 2011, Adobe began a strategic shift by launching Adobe Creative Cloud, a subscription-based model that provided access to their suite of software tools as well as cloud storage and other additional features for a monthly price. They had entered the still nascent world of SaaS, or software as a service. By moving to a subscription-based pricing, Adobe really lowered the barriers to entry for new customers as well as increased retention for existing customers. They also introduced new tools like Adobe XD for user experience design, Adobe Premiere Rush for video editing, and Adobe Spark for content creation. They even embraced the iPad as a new platform and launched many new apps specifically built for that form factor. All of these catered to upcoming markets that they were not serving currently. Finally, Adobe kept acquiring smaller and more innovative companies like Behance, which was a social media platform for creative professionals, to integrate into its ecosystem and help drive growth. This strategic shift proved to be massively successful for Adobe. Today, Adobe Creative Cloud is the industry standard for creative professionals, and the company has maintained its market dominance despite the rise of numerous competitors. Adobe's stock price has also risen dramatically since the introduction of the Creative Cloud, reflecting the company's strong performance. But there was one essential move in all of these strategies that Adobe used to make sure that disruptive innovations were not overshadowed by sustaining innovations: autonomy. So coming to the present day, Adobe has put in a bid of $20 billion to acquire Figma, the newest threat and competitor to Adobe XD, and the entire Adobe Creative Suite. While Adobe XD was built to fit into the workflows of existing Adobe customers and pros, Figma was built from the ground up as a browser-based multi-user collaborative platform. Figma has even committed to being forever free for students and individuals, making it very easy for new designers to get set up and started on Figma without having to figure out the packaging and pricing of the Adobe Creative Suite. Since launching in 2016, Adobe very quickly became the go-to collaborative design tool. Its market share has also steadily grown to 90%, displacing InVision, Sketch, and multiple Adobe tools. So it's just a matter of time before Figma adds more and more features to cater to multiple more customer segments and disrupt all of Adobe's creative suites and products. But now that Adobe has spent almost 15% of its market share to acquire Figma, how does it make sure that this acquisition is successful in the long run? What's the best strategy for integrating Figma into the Adobe company and suite? Actually, the best strategy is not to integrate it at all. Instead, Professor Christensen's recommendation is to leave business units independent and autonomous as much as possible, so that different target segments and budgets are not mixed together and disruptive innovation is nurtured and allowed to succeed in the long run. Adobe should really let Figma run independently while continuing to invest in their existing products for sustaining innovations. And as Figma disrupts Adobe's products and business model, Adobe can slowly move resources and people from the Adobe Creative Suite team to the Figma team and business unit. And this strategy is not without precedent. Facebook did this with the Instagram acquisition. After acquiring Instagram for $1 billion, Facebook just kept it running mostly independently as a product and platform. As Instagram disrupts Facebook Blue, Meta has been moving people and resources away from Facebook and towards Instagram. So the good news is that Adobe CEO Shantanu Narayan is not new to the principles of disruptive innovation. He's acquired many startups since he became CEO in 2007, and most of these have been successful because he let them function independently and autonomously without trying to integrate them into the Adobe company and product suite. Just last year, Adobe acquired Frame.io for $1.3 billion and has just kept it running independently and as a separate product without making any integrations. The only integration that he made was to add a free tier to Frame.io for anyone who had subscribed to the Creative Suite of Adobe. And Adobe and Figma leadership have already announced that the plan is to leave Figma alone and keep it as an autonomous business unit. So there's long-term hope for Adobe and a lot to learn for the rest of the tech industry. If you haven't seen my previous video on how Airbnb used an air mattress listed on Craigslist to disrupt the entire hotel industry, you should definitely watch that because that's going to help you understand all of this a lot better and deeper.